What's up again, everybody? In our most recent Dice Masters video, our custom creator spotlight, where we spotlit, if that's like the right way to say it, where we discussed the creations of one Reg Sims, one of his custom card sleeves that we took a look at was a Galactus card sleeve, and it got me back to thinking, why is that character, who's super powerful, not yet in Dice Masters as a character? Is it because he's super powerful, or is it just something else? And it got me thinking, what other super powerful characters have up till now avoided making it into a Dice Masters set? So I went on a hunt and found 5 characters that I really like that are, again, super powerful, that have yet to really show up in Dice Masters. And I'm not just going to mention them and tell you that I hope that they make it in one day, though I do hope that all of these characters make it into a Dice Masters set one day. I'm going to take us one step further and I'll show you some cards that I mocked up really fast with some ideas of how they could be implemented and how you can take these uber powerful characters that are basically just gods at this point and work them into the game of Dice Masters. Let's take a look. Let's start with a character that got me on this quest in the first place. I really want to see Galactus finally make it into a Dice Masters set. If you don't know who Galactus is, he used to be a normal dude. He traveled the cosmos and eventually he became like this cosmic entity who just goes around the universe and eats planets. That's the only way that he can survive and sustain himself. So he just flies around space and eats entire planets for lunch. Really hits on the cosmic horror aspect of the universe within Marvel in a way that not a lot of villains actually delve into. He's just this overwhelming power. He's huge. When he shows up with his herald, you know it's over and there's not much that you can do about it unless of course you're like the Fantastic Four. And it would be really cool to see him make his way into Dice Masters, because you could just make a card that seems so overpowered and crazy, and as long as you cost it correctly, it may not actually be that meta breaking. So way back in 2017, I think, the community and I got together on a community stream kind of thing that we did for a little while, and we made an entire set, like a team pack of Fantastic Four characters and villains. And within that set, we actually made a Galactus card. This is Galactus, Destroyer of Worlds. We made 3 of these, but I picked this one to show off. This is a 10 cost mask villain. We used the Thanos die, as you can see down there at the bottom. And this card says, when fielded, return all purchased dice from both players' field zone, prep, area, and used pile to their cards, and Galactus is immune to this effect. So basically he just shows up and everything that's happened in that game to this point, to the moment that he's fielded, is just reset. It's all eaten up and you start back at square one, except you have a 9/9 and they have nothing. I think that's a really cool ability. That's a great way to kind of invoke this all-powerfulness of Galactus, this inevitability, and yet it's not super broken. Doesn't necessarily win you the game. If players still have sidekicks out, you can still block this, and so on and so forth. Another character that I'd love to see make its way into the Dice Masters universe is Sentry, or Robert Reynolds, who has one of the funniest little origin stories, and I don't really even want to call it an origin story, but the story that he's introduced in is just so silly. He starts out as this middle-aged, overweight dude who it actually turns out is this ultra-powerful superhero who basically forced himself to forget that he was this ultra-powerful superhero and forced everybody in the universe that has come across him to forget that he's an ultra-powerful superhero because he's inextricably tied to this ultra-powerful force of evil called the Void, and they're 2 sides of the same coin, and he can't separate them because they are meant to be together. It's like another persona within him. And so instead of destroying that persona, he couldn't, so he just hides the knowledge of himself and how strong he is and how amazing he is to the entire world. It makes everybody forget that he existed. It's a super interesting story, and I think WizKids could do some really interesting things with both a Sentry and a Void character, and them working or doing different things off of each other, maybe either having synergies or anti-synergies. And I created a little mock-up of what that might look like with Sentry, one with the Void, a 5-cost Bolt character. And again, I didn't actually mess around with the stat lines for all of these cards that I'm about to show you. I just kind of left them. They could really be whatever someone would want. Even the energy type could be different. But the ability is where I try to get creative. And the ability on this one says, when Sentry is fielded, deal 3 damage to target character die and opponent. So it's kind of like normal. I tried with Sentry to go something a little bit more normal, except for the last part. And this is where I think they could do some interesting stuff. When Sentry is fielded, so it's a second when fielded effect, if the Void is active, KO all character dice, both players. So once he becomes one with the Void, or once he enters the field while the Void is also present, everything explodes. And I think that's a really cool thematic ability, because it's like the moment he finds that other part of himself, unfortunately the other part of himself, everything goes crazy and his power is really revealed. And this is obviously another super powerful character if you've read any of the comics or just seen any synopsis videos on him. And so I think it'd be really interesting if they delved deeper into this character, or deep at all into this character, alongside of the Void. Okay, I just want to pause here and let you know that I'm not putting these in any particular order, so I don't think that that one is worse necessarily than any of these other ones, but I will say I did kind of swing for the fences for some of these other ones. The next one we're going to talk about is Dr. Fate. I love Dr. Fate, and I love that he's sort of a DC foil to Doctor Strange in my mind, and I would love to see Dr. Fate pop up in an upcoming DC set. Heck, I would love to see more DC sets in general, because I love DC, and we do have an upcoming Superman Kryptonite Crisis in the works, so even though we haven't seen anything from that, it would be kind of cool if Dr. Fate popped up in that. If you don't know Dr. Fate, it's actually the name that multiple superheroes have gone by over time, and it's essentially anyone that wears this helm and this amulet basically connect with this like old Egyptian wizard named Nabu who trains them to be like magic users, sorcerers, and they have just these insane powers, with their main one being like spell casting, telekinesis, telepathy, that sort of thing. So really a character that leans hard into the sorcerer role. So as far as what WizKids can do with this, I really love the spellcaster element of it. I kind of started thinking about Doctor Strange and the cards that we've seen from him and how he plays off of actions. And then I thought to myself, oh, you know what they could do? Oh man, they could create Dr. Fate, Helmet of Nabu. Maybe it's Nabu. I don't know how you'd pronounce that, where you put the emphasis. Anyway, here's a 6-drop mask character. Don't worry about the stat line. Just make it up as you go along. It's got a tune, and it's also got the Yanti Pureblood super rare ability. Except I made a change. This one says, while Dr. Fate is active, whenever you purchase an action die that costs 2 or greater, trigger the attunability of all active character dice. See, like, this is what they could do. They could bring back an old ability, they could tweak it to make it more palatable, and then they could put it on something that costs more. And all of a sudden, here's something that's very thematic, and especially for older players of Dice Masters, you recognize, but on a new character and a lot more balanced. I would love to see them do that. Staying in the DC universe, I would love to see WizKids incorporate the Spectre into our Dice Masters universe. And no, Red Lantern Spectre that we saw in War of Light doesn't count. Those cards sucked. I'm talking like a real pure Spectre. Now, these previous characters have like been cosmic entities or people that have just been ultra powered up, right? That sort of thing. The Spectre is literally God. Like, it's literally an aspect of the Abrahamic Judeo-Christian God. And it's the aspect of vengeance. So basically, this has been like I think the term that they use is the presence in DC lore, but the presence that created everything, the one above all, has created these different aspects and given them separate names. And then they have to take a human form so that they can be guided in their mission to do whatever they, are. And so the Spectre is the spirit of vengeance, within that whole canon. And his job is basically just to punish like crime and criminals and evildoers, right? And he does it in interesting ways. He does it by bending reality or changing reality. So instead of just straight up like eviscerating a person, he'll turn them into like a candle. He'll turn them into oil, or like he'll just transform them into something else. That is their punishment. That is the vengeance that he seeks out and, you know, completes. So the Spectre Spirit of Vengeance is a 6-cost mask character. Again, you can tweak all of these little details, but the ability I found the most thematic was, while the Spectre is active, once per turn, you may lose 1 life. Target character die becomes a copy of a different target character die until the end of the turn. Then KO the copying character die at the end of the turn. Okay, so like there's a lot going on here. I'm really happy with this one. It's got like a little flavor of the collector in there, where you can do this on both players' turn, but instead of spending like energy to bring a character in, you're picking 2 target character dice, and then the one you pick first becomes a copy of the one you pick second. So it's like you're transforming that first one into a candle, and then you're cracking the candle in half at the end of the turn, which is just so funny to me. Like, this is a really cool thematic ability, but I could see some really crazy things you could do with this. You could play this both offensively and defensively very, very well. This might be overpowered, but I think that's the point, right? Okay, I told you that I didn't put these in any particular order, but I will say that I did save the character that I want to show up the most in Dice Masters for last, and that is Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards is considered by many to be like the most powerful character in the Marvel universe. It may not be that way anymore, but I remember this being the thing for a while. If you don't know who he is, he's the son of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman, and like from an early age he exhibited like understanding that he had powers via the X gene, and like actually started to manifest them and control them. I think he was like 2 or something. Like, he was like super young. It didn't happen like most X-Men or most mutants when they hit puberty. This literally happened when he was like a baby. And there's a ton of stories that have him like growing up as a kid and things that happen to him and people realizing that he's just uber powerful, and so they like try to kidnap him like bad guys. And there's like a lot of stuff with regards to him as a kid, but really what I love is when he grows up and like his participation in the Future Foundation and his interactions with Molecule Man and like getting powers that he had when he was a kid, and then like the big final battle where he's fighting with the Celestials and he like brings out Galactus. And in fact, that's actually where we get the picture that I use for the card, is the moment where he's like calling Galactus to him. It's super cool. And as far as his powers are concerned, he can basically just warp reality to make anything that he wants to have happen or come to fruition. And so like if he doesn't want you to exist, you just don't exist. If he wants to create a universe, he just creates a universe. It's crazy. And so I thought to myself, how would you translate something that like out there and all encompassing as far as a power level to a game of Dice Masters? And so I thought to myself, well, let's take a fundamental rule and completely scrap it. That brought me to Franklin Richards' Power of the Beyonders. I made him a 6-cost like what if crossover character, but really that's actually probably more expensive than what we're about to do with him. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe you could tell me in the comment below how you would rework this card, because I most want to see this card in Dice Masters. I gave him the Immortal keyword, so if he's ever going to get KO'd or removed, he's just going to go back to the bag so he can come right back out. And while he's active, at the start of your turn, you may select which dice you draw from your bag during the clear and draw step. So no more like fiddling through the bag and hoping that you don't pull the sidekicks and instead pull the character dice. You just get to pick out of the bag, I will take these 4. If you increase that number with any card that lets you draw 5 dice, I will take these 5. If you want to trigger Rush, I will take these dice to trigger Rush. If you want to like reload your bag prior so that you can set up whatever you just purchased in your use pile, I will take that die. I think that is just a wonderful way to kind of show someone who can just create exactly what they want in Dice Masters card form. Now, is that, honestly, is that powerful enough for a 6-drop? I don't know. Maybe it's probably not. It probably needs to be like lower purchase cost wise, but tell me in a comment below how you would tweak this card with an ability kind of like that. So there's my list of 5 characters I want to really see make it in Dice Masters. Tell me, which 5 characters would you put on this list? Do you like my list? Do you like the cards that I created, and which one's your favorite? As always, everybody, thanks for watching.